People who have hired other people. What are some unexpected ways a candidate has disqualified themselves from, decreased their odds of getting a position they applied for? On the inverse of this, I went into a job interview where the manager said, "Look, I don't really care. You are my 30th applicant in a week and everyone has failed the drug test. If you can pass the drug test, you are hired. I don't even care about anything else anymore." I passed. It was an awesome job and he was a great manager. I was interviewing for a truck driver position and spontaneously, I asked how long the candidate has been driving for. Surprise! He didn't know how to. On the plus side, no bad driving habits. Another plus is perfect driving record. I heard about a parent who took their child somewhere to fill out an application. While the kid was filling out the application, the parent struck up a conversation with the manager, saying how their kid is lazy, disrespectful, and never listens, and how they want this job to whip their kid into shape. After they leave, the manager tosses out the kid's application. That's really awful. Why do people do shit like this? For some reason, a lot of parents don't understand that the employer of their child is looking to make money off their child's labor. They really think that the employer is doing the child a favor, and sure, work experience is great, but it's not the company's main goal. At the end of the day, if your kid isn't putting in the effort and we've exhausted training them, then we are going to have to cut him loose. The amount of times parents are upset because we fired little Billy because he has called out or given up his shifts the last month are astronomical. Yep, people don't realize they aren't asking the neighborhood shopkeeper to let their kid sweep so they can learn a working routine. They're asking a corporation to hire a child as an investment. My father almost went this route once. When I was 15, I was working at his friend's car wash. My father was annoyed that I had to work Memorial Day since we host a barbecue. He was going to call his friend. I had to explain, "Jesus Christ, you require me to have a job to learn responsibility. Do you really want me to be the kid whose dad calls his boss for him?" Good on you. My workplace fired an 18-year-old the other day for no showing and his dad called to let us know he had quit. I worked for my dad when I was 11 to 15, so no telling what sort of shit employee I would have been if I hadn't done that. But I still can't imagine being 18 years old and having a parent call my place of work to tell them I quit. Ridiculous. In a section of the application where we ask if they have a felony record, they answered yes. In the following field asking about details of said felony, they had put they had embezzled funds from their previous employer, then assaulted that employer, then assaulted arresting officers. While I admire the honesty, that's gonna be a no from me, dog. I once had a candidate bring up an illegal gambling habit as a way to show how good they were at working around rules and reading situations. When I managed a retail store, it wasn't uncommon for people to bail on job interviews with last minute or no notice. But there was only ever one person who no-showed the interview and then called the next week asking if they got the job. Yes, you did. You started yesterday. But you didn't show up, so you were fired. Cool, so can I mark you guys down as a reference? Absolutely you can. Had a guy who reluctantly told me he used to work at a sex shop. To try and save him from feeling weird, I told him that my wife has always found it fascinating and would love to work in one. His response, "Well, isn't she a ducking weirdo?" If I was the interviewer, I'd have to leave the room. I'd be laughing so hard. I hope there was no pause and he just said it without having to think. That would make it 20 times funnier. Doing a tech screen phone interview, and you could tell the guy was Googling his heart out every time we asked a question. He would say, let me think about that for a second. The background ambient noise would cut off, and then cut back on a second later, and he'd start reading off stuff from the top Google result. I had somebody pull this on me once. It was the most obvious thing in the world. There'd be this huge pause before they'd all of a sudden just start rattling all kinds of facts off. If you actually knew the answer to that level of detail, it wouldn't take 15 to 20 seconds for you to start answering questions. At one point I brought up the Wikipedia page for the subject on my phone while she answered and silently followed along with her as she pretty much read it out to me. This was my first phone interview ever, so my boss was sitting in with me. Afterwards he told me that he nearly closed the interview by saying, "Well, you have a good Wikipedia level understanding of things, but you're not quite what we're looking for." He might as well have said that. She would have clearly known why she failed. Posted this before, but it's always good for a revisit. Applicant: "So, y'all do background checks, criminal history for this job, right?" Me: "Yeah. Applicant: so, the court messed up, and when you run my background, it's not gonna say statutory, but it was totally just statutory. Oh Jesus. I had someone come in who had just quit another job. And they badmouthed their previous boss throughout the entire interview. Like. We tried to steer her away and she went back to it. She clearly needed to unload, but an interview is not the place. I was wondering about this. What if they ask you why are you leaving the previous company? How truthful should you be? At the company I am currently working, there has been a couple of people who were interviewed and they were talking really bad stuff about their previous companies. Should they have just pretended that everything was fine? You just need to find a professional way to say my boss is a ducking moron and is driving the company to the ground, so usually, well, I feel like I can't reach my full potential there anymore, and am looking to apply my skills and grow professionally with your company because X. This guy was applying to be a teacher's assistant whose main duty would be to help grade papers. He had to analyze an essay, 1 page. It took him over 2 hours. He handed the essay and there were 2 notes, he took off a comma and added a period. Velp. I scoured it for hours, but could not find a single error, aside from 2 minor punctuation errors. This essay, she is perfect. Pat's Hood of essay. He had Barack and Michelle Obama for his references, White House address and a phone number I doubt was theirs at all, and listed cure for cancer in his achievements. The team had a good laugh about it for a second and then threw out his resume. I regret not trying out those reference numbers though. And listed cure for cancer in his achievements. What a country we live in. The guy that cures cancer can't find a job. Pharmaceutical companies hate him. Please don't name your resume job shit. Did they save that as the file name and then attach the document to an email or something? Yes. They have to upload their documents to our hiring system. I work at a hospital on a med-surg floor. We have a 2-part interview, one with the unit manager and one with either a nurse or an aide. We have a series of questions to ask based on a survey they fill out in the end of the application. She managed to make her way to me and this was her response to a question. If you saw a coworker doing something unethical, like stealing from a patient, what would you do? It depends if it was valuable or not, I mean who hasn't stolen something before? I had to take a personality test for a retail job once. The test was all questions like agree or disagree, it's okay to take money out of the till sometimes. Or everyone steals from the register from time to time. At first, I was all, hell no, that's stealing. But by the end of the questionnaire I thought maybe it was much more widely accepted than I thought. That's probably what it was testing for. Well, obviously if everyone is doing it. They're looking for that fine line between tattletale and lemming. Examples: if your coworker isn't giving enough effort, speak to them first, not run to the boss. If your coworker is stealing, directly to boss. They will ask the same question 10 times in 10 different ways to see if you are consistent in your answers. Do you guys drug test? Yes, we do. For like, all the drugs? Yes. Okay. Thank you for your time. And then he got up and left. At least he was honest. Candidate arrived in rollerblades. Stayed in rollerblades the whole interview. He used the word blade instead of walk or go for the whole interview. Can't tell if I was being punked. Some more details: he was in his early 20s, resume was good but not great. The whole rollerblades thing wasn't a deal breaker, but it definitely didn't help. He insisted on sitting on the desk, rather than on a seat, so his rollerblade feet could just hang. I had to insist a couple more times throughout the interview for him to reluctantly take a seat, which didn't help either. While you went to college, I studied the blade. I'm a lobby guard, so I don't do the interviews. However, I have had interviewers ask me how the interviewee behaved in the lobby while waiting. Most just sit there twiddling their thumbs nervously, but 910 times those who ask me questions about the company and or the team they are interviewing for are hired, and 1010 times people who are genuinely rude to me are never hired. I would have thought that this is common knowledge. Why on earth would you be rude to literally anyone where you're interviewing for a job? Assume that you're making an impression on everyone. Seriously. When I'm heading to an interview, I'm sweet as pie to everyone I encounter on the way, even if I'm miles away from the office location. Not only is there a chance, however minuscule, I might encounter someone who works at the same place. I also don't want to start the interview with any negative energy. I was sitting in a coffee shop before a job interview across the street and someone dropped their coffee on the way out the door. I helped grab some napkins to help clean it up. Turns out it was the hiring manager's boss, and when I showed up to the interview 30 minutes later, she was in the room and I'm pretty sure they were just talking about the story because she was like, "That's the guy, and I got an offer."